Welcome everyone. Welcome to our learning community today. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. My name is Chuck Warpahusky. I am the program director here at Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration. So glad you are all with us today. Why don't we also give a minute for individuals to come off mute and say hello directly.
I'm Kathy Gorley, and the two organizations that are most interesting to this group. I'm very interested in criminal justice reform, so I participate in a lot of organizations, but Friends of Restorative Justice and Michigan Citizens for Justice. So Friends of Restorative Justice promotes restorative justice in Michigan, and Michigan Citizens for Justice is a support and advocacy group for people with sex offense convictions and their families.
Go for it, Micah.
Hi, my name's Micah. I'm a pretrial release advocate out of Fayetteville, Arkansas, which the title is the Hummingbird Project. And basically, what I do is I get to go help advocate for individuals and get them out of our justice or our detention center that are being held for basically just being in poverty or the systemic racism that we still got going on down here in the South.
Hi, you guys. I know you can't see me on the video, but I'm Ronell Ellis from Detroit, Michigan. I work for Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, CVI coordinator. So we do a lot of violence interruption, try to keep the peace in the city and keep the gang violence and any type of violence down.
Fantastic. Love it. Really appreciate you all. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off our formal program. So we are here today to talk about holistic and participatory defense. This program, this learning community that you are part of, was the brainchild of several organizations that came together to kick it off. Detroit Justice Center, Sheba's on the call. It was her idea initially and helped catalyze to bring this all together. We've also got Friends of Restorative Justice, Dispute Resolution Center, Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities, and Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration. One of our also founders on this, Elisheve, will be on the sharing recently, but Emergent Justice was also one of the founding partners to help get this learning community off the ground. What we're going to be doing today for our program, we're doing our welcome and introductions. We've got three amazing panelists who are talking about different ways to help improve things on the front end for people who do have criminal charges. How do we improve their defense, either by bringing the community in with participatory defense or by stepping it up with services so that we can not just end up with legal situation for somebody, but try to help access the services that led to that situation in the first place. After these panelists, we're also going to make some space. I know we have a number of other practitioners who are in the room doing participatory or holistic defense. So, and then we'll break it into a full Q&A for the whole group there. So that is our agenda. In terms of what we're here to do, this learning community is a recognition that across Michigan and across the country, there are amazing people who are doing incredible work to help improve public safety and prevent incarceration on the front end. But we also often don't know each other. And this learning community is a chance to overcome that situation and to help build those connections. For this specific session, as we were starting this learning community, we were looking at it, we were recognizing there's a lot that happens before somebody ends up in jail or prison. There's a lot of stuff that on the front end. And the bad news is that means that there's a lot of ways that people can get tangled up in the criminal legal system and have their lives ruined by that system. But it also means that there are a lot of off-ramps. There's a lot of ways to try to change that direction so that people don't end up in jail, don't end up in prison, don't end up in the hospital, and certainly don't end up in the morgue. And some of those are before there's even an incident. Somebody's talking about community violence intervention from Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation. If there's conflict in the community, how do we make sure that those don't result in shots fired? If there is something that happens in the community, how do we make sure that it's handled through the least carceral, least destructive ways possible? But what we're here is talking about just about at that end of the front end off-ramp list. There is something that happens in community. Somebody is facing charges. How do we help support them in that court process, either by bringing the community in to support their legal case, or by using that defense, that time when they're interacting with their defender to help them access broader services? And we have three amazing panelists who are going to lead us through that. Brittany M. Williams from the Washtenaw County Office of the Public Defender is going to kick it off, talking about what she is doing in the Public Defender's office as a social worker, hanging out with a bunch of attorneys, trying to say that when people are in the office, they don't just need legal support, but there's a chance to go broader and deeper with their support. Following that, we'll hear from Jasmine Valentine at Detroit Justice Center. As I said, DJC was one of the founding organizations, the founding organization for this learning community. And what I love about DJC is that DJC doesn't just do the work of providing this defense for the clients they serve. They don't just do the work of bringing in other supportive navigation to address broader concerns. They go deeper to say there's a whole context that led somebody to the criminal legal system. How do we change that whole system? Not just support the person, but change the broader conditions that led them there. And then we'll wrap up with Elisheve Johnson from Emergent Justice talking about participatory defense. How, when somebody has a case, do we not just have the defendant and their attorney, but what are the broader ways we bring the community in to be part of that process and support the defense? I think you've heard enough from me. We have three amazing speakers, and I'm going to kick it off to Brittany to lead us off and talk about holistic defense. Brittany, take it away.
Hello, hello. So like Chuck's already said, I'm here to chat with y'all about holistic defense, which is something that I have become very passionate about since my time in the Washtenaw County Public Defender Office. The way that I like to see it is that it's an approach to public defense or criminal defense that is focused on helping the whole person. So we're going to chat a bit about that. So just some guiding definitions. Sometimes when you hear about defense, you'll hear indigent defense, just a way of stating that someone who is poor or needy in some capacity, defending, resisting against attack or protection. Holistic, big part of this, concerned with the care of the entire person in all aspects of their well-being, including the physical, psychological, and social. Some of what we'll also talk about is storytelling. So what is a story? A narrative, either true or fictitious, in prose or verse, designed to interest, amuse, or instruct the reader. And we do a lot of that in mitigation reporting, which mitigation is the act of making a condition or consequence less severe. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with these words, but I am a huge nerd and I like giving definitions of words. So I'm taking that liberty. So the HD, which is Holistic Defense OGs, are kind of the Bronx defenders. When I came on here at Washtenaw County, that they were folks that I was immediately in contact with. They were established in 1997 and are often credited with creating the interdisciplinary model known as holistic defense, which ultimately paved the way for social work and public defense spaces. There's 4 pillars of holistic defense that Bronx defenders came up with. The first is seamless access to services that meet both legal and social support needs. So focusing on the fact that this is a whole person, that they're not existing just within the context of their criminal legal case, that there are other things that they have going on that they need support with. Having dynamic interdisciplinary communication. So an approach to holistic defense that says these are different disciplines that are coming together to work, and we're not going to work in silos. We're going to be consistently communicating with each other and supporting each other so that we can support the client. Advocates with an interdisciplinary skill set. So one example of that, which was really great, is that we had at one point an MSW, Master of Social Work intern, who also had a master's in legal studies. And so his approach to working within the social work division was very different. And he was able to communicate with the attorneys in a very unique way that was very helpful to our clients. And then my favorite pillar personally is a robust understanding of and connection to the community served. I can be very easy to just approach this work as saying, this is just a job. I don't really need to get to know those people. but the community is important, and understanding folks is important on a deeper level, because you're not going to be able to connect with a client in the way that you need to if you don't have an understanding of them as a person, as well as the community that they're coming from. So that is very important to my office in particular, I will say. So this is a visualization of what holistic defense can look like, which is coming from the Bronx Defenders. So as you see, it's a client-centered approach. They're at the center of this. It's not all about the attorney or all about the social worker. It's all about serving that person who's in the center. We don't have all of these things in my office. What I will say is that we obviously have criminal defense attorneys, social workers, and I'll talk a bit more about my team and how we operate. We recently did hire on an immigration attorney, which I'm very excited about. And we also have an investigative division. And then there's a newer division in our office, which is known as it's so new that it's slipping my mind right now. Systems Engagement Team, SET. So that's a big part of what I was saying about knowing the community, being in the community, hearing what their needs are. That's a part of that division's role in the office. And then some of what they also do is resource navigation work, making sure that at the close of representation, folks can still be successful, whether they're on probation or not, that they can be successful in community. So I'm excited as we continue to grow and take an even more holistic approach, seeing these new folks coming on throughout. And I would hope eventually that maybe we could have all of these things in place. So a bit about holistic defense, specifically in Washtenaw County. It was established in 1971. We're one of the older offices throughout the state. Our chief public defender is Delphia T. Simpson. And our mission is to provide constitutionally mandated, competent, effective, and ethical legal representation to people who are unable to afford private counsel, where life or liberty issues are at stake. The vision is to create a community-oriented, client-centered law practice where every client receives high-quality and zealous representation, along with access to community resources and opportunities without regard to economic or social status. I think the thing that I love about this is that the mission is kind of very centered on the legal, which is how the office was established. And then I think the vision is what has moved the holistic piece of our work forward, it being community-oriented and client-centered. So some examples of what holistic defense looks like. So the social work presence was established in 2020. That's when I came on at the office in around September. And for me, it was just me for a while until we brought on additional full-time staff, which were added in 2022. My division is known as AIM, which stands for Advocacy, Intervention, and Mitigation. Shout out to Mari Vischer, who's here from Sato. She used to be on the AIM team. She's incredible. We have a team of 3 social workers, 2 mitigation specialists, a therapist, and 4 MSW interns. Like I said, it was just me for a while, and then we added on, initially they were client advocates, so it was kind of a combination of mitigation work and resource navigation work. And then we changed that role to mitigation specialists. So those are folks who are telling the story of our clients, and mitigation is kind of the most fulfilling piece of the work for me, because it's a privilege, in my opinion, to have a person share their story with you and trust you to convey it to the court in a way that helps them to be seen for who they are rather than what they're being charged with. And we've had some really great outcomes for mitigation reports. We've had dismissals, reductions in charges, reductions in sentencing. I think that it's kind of an approach that we take to the writing is for it to be a mixture of clinical and research writing and also creative writing. And so really telling that story in a meaningful and impactful way through mixing all of those together. Social workers also write mitigation in my office, but they are also doing resource navigation support. So for instance, a person might be engaged with the system because they don't have what they need in terms of mental health supports or substance use treatment. A lot of our folks are unhoused, and that's resulting in charges with criminalization of homelessness. So the social workers are doing that work as well. Very excited to have a therapist who recently went from being part-time to full-time. One thing we know is that there is a community mental health presence in our jail. here in Washtenaw County, but they are not authorized to do therapy. And we had an individual who had been charged with open murder, was really struggling. This was the first time that they had ever been charged with anything, first time being incarcerated, and also the person who was deceased was known to them. This was a loved one. And so they're processing the death of a loved one, being involved in the system, being incarcerated, and potentially looking at life in prison all at once without any sort of therapeutic support. So we were able to bring someone in to help him. It helped out a lot. Mitigation was written, and there was a significant reduction in charges to the point that once it was all said and done with the case, that individual was released. So that the therapist continues to work with folks so that they can process some of the things that are getting in the way of them being able to participate in their own defense. And then the intern support around resource navigation as well as mitigation. Sometimes we can kind of underestimate interns, but they do really, really important work. There was one in particular who was able, I think someone's unmuted. One individual in particular who was an intern with our office, who wrote such a compelling mitigation report that there was a reduction from a capital charge down to a misdemeanor so that that particular client could be admitted into the Veterans Treatment Court. And a lot of what she talked about in that report was the experience that person had in the military, and then what happened once they were discharged honorably, but weren't able to really reintegrate in society the way that they needed to, and didn't have the supports they needed, which resulted in them committing an armed robbery. So for the social work referral process, our attorneys are very well trained. Honestly, starting at arraignment, we start getting referrals because the attorneys are so aware of what people may need in terms of resources as well as mitigation. And so those get sent to me. We collect them throughout the week, and then we assign them to various members of the team to work with them on mitigation, resource navigation, or therapy. Other pieces, like I mentioned when we were looking at the visual earlier, are the investigative team, which work very closely with us. Can also be a big part of the storytelling. I actually recently wrote a mitigation report for someone who was scammed and committed an uttering and publishing, allegedly. And as a result, was looking at some time, but the investigator was able to find the transcripts of the chats between this person and our client and the person who scammed them. And that played a huge role in me being able to put forth a compelling mitigation report for that person. Like I mentioned, we also have an immigration attorney, and clients are well trained in that, as well as the systems engagement piece of things. So I think we're doing our best here and continuing to grow. Very proud of the work, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do it.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Brittany. Before we move on, I know we have some other folks who are doing holistic defense in the call. And so what I'd love is if we could get just a couple of other folks who are practitioners like Brittany is in different parts of the state. If you could raise your hand, come off mute, and share where you're practicing so folks get a sense of, if they're not in Washtenaw County, they can't call up Brittany, get a sense of who else they can support.
My name is Whitney Gibson. I'm the Holistic Defense Coordinator for the Public Defender's Office in Allegan. I have one other person on my staff, Olivia. She's our Holistic Defense Advocate. I've been in the position since 2021, and I think Brittany outlined holistic defense very well. We follow the same pillars set out by the Bronx Defenders. I'd like to share one story of just, I guess, the power that I've seen of working collaboratively with other community stakeholders, aside from just people in the public defender's office. We also have community mental health in our jail as well. And it's been really critical to build relationships with those clinicians. I've had one client who has had a long criminal history and struggled with addiction for many years, been to prison previously, and he was charged with possession of methamphetamine. And we were able to advocate to the court to reduce his bond, to a PR bond so he could go to treatment, and to coordinate with community mental health so he could get approved for residential treatment. But then also they were able to provide transportation to the treatment center and assigned him a peer recovery coach that started working with him immediately. And through that coordination, we were really able to show the judge like why this time was different, right? The signs that he was showing of wanting to make a change and to be proactive in his recovery. He ended up doing so well in the treatment center and went on to sober living and becoming a manager there. And I was able to collect letters of support from his treatment providers and from peers that he had connected with. And the judge, he had a sentencing guideline range of 10 months to 23 months. So he was potentially looking at prison, but the judge sentenced him to time served, and he ended up only serving 50 days in jail. So it was really exciting to see the progress that he had made, then also to show that to the court so the court could see a full picture of the progress they had made, more than just what his criminal history may have shown. So that was something that happened more recently.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melody. I'm the Director of Collaborative Engagement here in Kalamazoo. But I've spent the last 4 years building out our holistic side. Just like Washtenaw, we're similar. We have 3 client navigators. We have 3 mitigation specialists, but we also, through a grant that we received through Leo, we started AMID, which is our Addressing Mental Health and Indigent Defense. And that's what I'd like to uplift here. We've been able to start doing mental health screenings with our clients and then working with psychologists that we contract with that have become part of our team and data specialists. We're able to provide the attorneys with psychological screening and vulnerability assessments that are signed by the psychologists to be able to use in mitigation. And that has been a huge win for us in court and for our clients. We've seen such good results come out of that. We're actually working on making it a permanent part of our organization because it's gone so well. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm excited to be here with everyone who's doing similar things.
Thank you, Melody. I love it. A lot of the changes, there's 1,000 decisions that happen every day that either put somebody on the path towards incarceration or turn them. And some of them are big signature changes like clean slate or things like that. But a lot of them are these small behind the scenes decisions about are we doing the screening and such. We're going to hear, I think, we've got Mia, and then we're going to go ahead and switch to the next presentation from DJC.
So I'm at Indigent Defense Services in Wayne County. We have a lead advocate, and then we have all social workers that we call defender support advocates. And we do service connections. We advocate for clients for mental health services, and then we also write mitigation reports. Sometimes we write reentry plans that kind of just give the judge or the prosecutor an idea of what type of services that person would benefit from, and advocating for lower sentences and instead being connected to services. Yeah.
Thank you. Love it, Mia. The other piece, just before I queue up Jasmine from DJC, Detroit Justice Center, I've been hearing from a lot of people lately, there's a sense of like cynicism, will things get better? And I want like the work that's happening now from these participatory defense pieces, this is an example of things getting better. And also a lot of these efforts are funded. Melody talked about funding from the state office on labor and economic opportunity. And a lot of the funding is coming from the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, which hasn't always been here. Michigan has, so I think I'm not going to lie, politically times are tough when we talk about criminal justice reform and transformation, but being able to see this progress and success we have seen is a key part of maintaining that stamina to move forward. And with that, I am going to introduce Jasmine from Detroit Justice Center to talk about the work that they do, really thinking broadly and expansively about how to support justice in our communities. Jasmine.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Jasmine Valentine. I'm a paralegal at DJC. I've been at our organization for about 4 years. And as many folks may know, and sorry if you hear any background, I'm currently at our Road to Restoration Royal Oak Clinic. So DJC is a Black woman-led abolition law firm with the mission and vision to end mass incarceration, as many of us on this call are. We provide more than just pro bono legal services, and we truly combat oppressive systems through our three-pronged approach: defense, offense, and dreaming. You can go to the next slide, Chuck. So our founder, Amanda Alexander, as you can see these stats here, she intentionally designed DJC to answer to the needs of the Detroiters, rooting our legal services in direct alignment with the needs of the community and identifying those gaps. So you'll see 35% of our residents live in poverty. 29% of city funds are spent on policing. 6.5% Black folks are more likely to be incarcerated by our white folks in Michigan. Right? So again, she really rooted our legal services in filling that gap, identifying what are the actual needs of our community. You can go to the next slide. So with that, like I mentioned, we provide holistic legal services beyond litigation through our three-pronged approach. So our three-pronged approach is that defense, offense, and dreaming, very similar to basketball in that way. And I will go into detail into how we actually use our legal services to actually answer the needs to Detroiters. Go to the next slide. So our defense prong is actually the practice group that I am a part of. And that is helping Detroiters with their interpersonal legal needs with a focus on traffic, family, and eviction defense. In addition to our amazing staff attorneys, our legal team is comprised of paralegals, community legal advocates, policy advocate, undergrad and law students as interns, externs, and holistic defense fellows. Our community legal advocates, which I believe Chris Delgado is on the call, they've assisted Detroiters in a multitude of ways. One, by assisting Detroiters that lost their homes to tax foreclosure. Right now, our office at the Love Building is a Michigan self-help center. So again, removing the barrier that many of just Michiganders, period, have of, they may know that self-help center is at 36th District, but again, the fear of incarceration may be over their head and they may not seek those services. So now they can come to our space and get that help that they would need. Myself and my other colleague, Safia Webster, as paralegals, we don't provide wraparound services. Rather, we're considerate of a client's well-being, setting them up for success. And with both of us, coincidentally, our backgrounds in advocacy, we approach our work through a trauma-informed and human-centered framework. Our policy advocate, Liz, is absolutely amazing. We're all about collaboration at DJC. We share project updates, client testimonials, whether good or bad results, right? And the storytelling allows us to advocate for change legislation based on what we're seeing in real time, truly answering to the needs of our community. You go to the next slide. So our offense prong, our economic equity practice, also known as EAP, recently restructured into two branches. We have an entrepreneurship and an affordable housing branch. As returning citizens are 5 times more likely than the general population to become entrepreneurs, EAP provides legal assistance to justice impacted individuals, whether it be to assist with developing programs or providing legal services. We're here to assist entrepreneurs so they don't fall victim to intentional predatory business practices. You can go to the next slide. And our dreaming prong, which I know Sheba and Lauren are on the call. Our dreaming prong, to me, our innovation lab is one of my favorite approaches at DJC. Our innovation lab is home to the Michigan Restorative Justice Network and our Just Cities lab managed by Sheba Rogers. I like to describe our dreaming prong as the foundation of our movement work. It keeps us hopeful, I'll say, especially me during these times, it keeps me hopeful that the world that we're working to create will come to fruition one day. We're not in the business of solely talking about what we want to eradicate, which I know can be so easy, but we want to shift that narrative instead to what do we want to build, design, create instead of jails, prisons, or police. Our innovation lab, which Sheba created, the Innovation Lab's Partner Roundtable, which is a convening of, I want to say, folks on this call, part of that roundtable, of 40 local organizations and service providers rooted in mental health services and harm reduction to increase investments in care and reduce reliance on incarceration. As a unit, they are truly creating safety reinvestment strategies. So shout out to Sheba. We can go to the next slide. Then I love our Dreaming Innovation Lab. Also, our Restorative Justice Network, the not Michigan, Detroit, Metro Detroit Restorative Justice Network, which they more so a holistic approach to acknowledging the harms that's impacting our community using holistic, ancestral empowerment and somatic practices. They recently launched a book last year, and you'll see it right there on the right-hand side. Unraveling Harm, Cultivating Safety. This book highlighted the complexities of designing safety through an anti-carceral framework while recognizing personal biases and communal distrust. Lauren also hosts trainings for community members to become trained restorative justice practitioners, such as using healing or restorative justice circles to, again, let's acknowledge that harm. How can we do better? And something that we just launched last year with one of our referral partners, D-Live, was a health justice series. Typically, we provide legal services to their clients, but Lauren stepped in to actually host circles for folks that were, harmed. Of what does that look like to move through your trauma? And also on that other side, what does it look like to go from a survivor of harm to now advocating for folks like you. And something I love being able to engage with our artist in residency program. We're always asking them, what does a world without policing or incarceration look like? This program is awesome because it's actually investing in artists. It is a pay-up residency, it's investing in artists, specializing in any art medium, expressing their version of what a just world is. And you can go to the next page. So I know I covered a lot in a little bit of time. So with that, this next slide, it just highlights some of our strategic priorities to obtaining that just city we all deserve to experience. So as you can see, to retain those existing residents, launching our community land trust and expand affordable housing through our EAT practice, building a solidarity economy and forming worker-owned cooperative businesses, also supporting our community-led neighborhood developments, because we know DJC has been around 8 years, but there are folks in the community that have been doing this work well before I was even born. Again, building a robust support for our returning citizens. What does that look like? And having an approach that centers the human first and being trauma informed. Engaging our residents in setting and realizing their visions of safety. Creating pathways for restorative justice. So again, our restorative justice network, Lauren does a great job of meeting folks where they're at and talking to them. You want to obtain safety, but what does that look like? Because I know safety for me may not look like safety for you the same ways. And divest budget priorities from police and incarceration, because we know I don't have to tell the people on this call that we need to be able to resources such as the ones on this call that are already doing the work and have capacity to do the work rather than relying on law enforcement that don't have the training, the time, or capacity to do that. And again, make justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging central to our decision making. So it's not an afterthought, that it is truly rooted in when we do this work. And prioritizing accessibility. Again, we can come up with amazing programs, amazing initiatives, but if it's not accessible to our most marginalized communities, we have to ask ourselves, are we actually providing services that are for the community, or are we just checking a box? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. We are going to go right from that into, so as I mentioned earlier, DJC was one of the folks who founded this learning community, and one of the other groups that was part of founding it was the Emergent Justice Organization and Elisheve Johnson. So we're going to give Elisheve a chance to shine and talk a little bit about what participatory defenses. We've been talking about holistic defense, but what does participatory defense look like, and what's been Emergent Justice's approach to that? Elisheve, take it away.
Hey, my name is Elisheve T. Johnson. I am the founding director of Emergent Justice. We do criminal justice reform work and advocacy around the criminal legal system. So the mission of Emergent Justice is to empower communities to unapologetically fight to dismantle all systems of injustice throughout Michigan. And we use this community organizing approach to empower justice impacted, multi-generational, BIPOC people, y'all, that have been traumatized by racial injustice, to create a culture of unity, hope, and resilience. And really, the reason why I do this work is because I'm one of the impacted people that the justice system has harmed, and I wish I would have had a participatory defense team to support me in the work. So let's get right into it, y'all. Participatory defense is a grassroots movement of people coming together to fight against harsh sentences and wrongful convictions in the criminal legal system, as well as school discipline procedures that feed the school to prison pipeline. That's some of the other work that we do. So most of the people that enter into the criminal justice center, into the criminal justice system, they don't really know how the system works. They have a limited knowledge of how the system operates, and that it might also just be operating against them purposely. The same thing can be said for parents whose children are involved in school disciplinary actions. So both of them can play a critical role in influencing the outcomes of the process by taking constructive actions at specific points, because there are some really important places where intervention can happen, and we'll get into that a little later. But participatory defense exists to help them understand what they can do and when to do it. Okay, so what is participatory defense? It is a virtual meeting space that we hold for each case to come together with other case teams, y'all, with other people at Emergent Justice. We tend to come all together, talk about our case, and then we all weigh in, we get updates on where a case may be. And then because we're just regular, everyday people impacted by the same systems as the people who we are helping, it's really important for us to always remember that we are not lawyers. But our case teams look like people facing the charges when they're available, right? When they're out. Because a lot of times we are having a meeting and we have a person who's literally calling us from county, the county jail, and being a part of our call. Their family members and loved ones and supporters. The Emergent Justice Hub personnel includes those who have been directly impacted by the system, past members of the hub, so like people that came to us for help, and now they're doing, they got mutual aid and they want to give that back, right? And then again, we are not lawyers and we do not give legal advice. So our program consists of 3 different components. It is the fact that we have regular hub meetings. They can be sometimes weekly, bi-weekly. We never try to go past a month, especially since we all know how, especially when a case is pretty new and just getting started, how fast things can move. Another piece of that is the social bio packets that we do that I'm so proud of, that have moved so many judges, prosecutors. Also, we give those to the word I'm looking for, oversight of folks and their probation and parole officers. These packets have had provided time served for people up to 20 years, right? And so we call it time saved because it would have been time that they would have served. And we have saved over 197 hours, 97 years off of people's system, off of people's cases as a whole through this really horrible system and the good work that we're doing. The last component of the work that we do is court monitoring. Our hub team members are present in court. We provide moral support. We also help the case team understand the process. Remember, the case team are our regular everyday folks. They're your loved ones. And we're there to help them to understand the process as well. It is the holding the representative of the court accountable and identifying systematic changes in policies, procedures that need to be addressed. Next slide. Our hub is a working space. It's not a place, I say this so many times because I literally have people that call me from prison that are like acting like they paid me and I gotta get on my work. And I have to explain to them that this is literally a free service that we are providing. And if the family or supporters are not there to help to guide this along, then the case probably won't get where the good results that this work does when you do the work. So the kind of work that the case teams do is we make phone calls, we gather documents for the defense lawyer and for the social bio. We brainstorm with other case teams about strategy for all the cases in the hub. Next slide. So this is where I really like to do a deep dive in, because I feel like because people do not understand the points of intervention when they are moving through the criminal legal system is why most people end up with the short end of the stick. And let's go through what those stages look like. First, we know there has to be an arrest. During that time, you want to document the incident, prepare a social bio, arrange a meeting with the attorney, find out what the charges are against the person, obtain a copy of the police report, and document any inconsistencies that you've seen. The second stage is when those charges are coming. You want to make sure that you review the discovery. You share witness contact and information with the attorney. This is when we begin to build the social bio, and we'll be asking for a lot of documentation. Some of the things that go in the social bio is letters of support, any kind of skills or training or diplomas that you might have that you might want to show, pictures of your family, pictures of work that you've done in the community, pictures of your art, pictures of you, just showing that you're more than a number, and that the folks that are moving through the criminal legal system really have a story and need to be heard by the court system as well. And due process is important to these folks, and it's also a mechanism to show them that people are watching while this is happening as well. I'm going to move really quickly through this, but that we just know that there are places like that there's interventions that need to happen, like arraignments. People need to show up. In your preliminary hearing, you might want to have people, again, showing up. And we train and develop people around these points of intervention because once you learn this, you're able to advocate for other people as well in your community. All right. Okay. The school to prison pipeline refers to a set of practices and policies that often unintentionally result in some students being pushed out of the classroom and onto a path towards involvement with juvenile or the criminal legal system. This happens when exclusionary practices like suspensions and expulsions, and the reliance on law enforcement in schools are used in situations that could be addressed with guidance and support instead. Just some real quick statistics here. 49.2 million overall students are enrolled in our public schools in this country. 69,000 a year, 900 are referred to law enforcement. Out of those, 8,900 become school-related arrests. So for you all that don't believe that like the school to prison pipeline exists in that way, that it's direct, just like that, it really, really does. One of our biggest achievements, and if you could go to the next slide. One of our biggest achievements is the 197 years saved. And the fact that we have supported the efforts of a Justice for Mario Willis campaign. We just got an evidentiary hearing held back in December through February, y'all. It was really, really an amazing thing to watch and be a part of, and to know that this came all out of the participatory defense work that we do. Y'all, please go check out justiceformariowillis.com and check out this case, and please become involved. You all can also reach out to me, Elisheve Johnson, elisheve@emergentjustice.org. And you also can check us out on Facebook. And we really go hard on Instagram. So check us out there. And I really thank and appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Elisheve. Now, I know we've got some other folks who are involved in participatory defense on the call as well. So Sarah, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Elias.
Good afternoon. I am Sarah Fidawa with the First Hub in Lansing. I am the interim program coordinator. We have been doing a lot of the things that Elisheve was talking about. We also like to give families, especially people that are going through something, we'd like to provide them with workbooks such as domestic abuse, substance abuse, things like that to work on while they're either if they're still in the jail or even outside. We also produce an informative and learning webinars for our families and the individuals. We also have recently just assisted a mother that was on trial, and she was saved 4 years because she was found not guilty. And then what obviously is unique about our participatory defense hub in Lansing is that we operate under Citizens for Prison Reform. We have been assisting families and their loved ones that are in the MDOC since 2012. So this is helpful to families that do end up in the prison system.
Thank you, Sarah. And Elias from Ripple Effect.
First, I just want to say that it's awesome to hear how much work is going on in the Michigan communities around this topic. I too was personally impacted at the young age of 18 years old, and I strongly believe that had I had the support of any type of participatory defense or holistic approach, that the outcome for me would have been significantly different. So I just wanted to just highlight the appreciation for all the work that's going on. That's the reason why I have a special interest in being a part of participatory defense. I see the real impact that is having in the courtrooms, not only with the individuals that are experiencing it in real time, but their families as well. Because I think their families are being left out of the equation. Most of the time they're being impacted. A lot of times They didn't ask to be involved with what happened because they have a loved one that's going through it. Naturally, they show up. As long as the system keeps getting us as individuals and isolating us with the limited knowledge that you guys were speaking about, they're going to keep having their way with us and doing what they will. With all the education that's going on around that and all of the wonderful people that are involved in this space, doing the heavy lifting, doing the work, it's making a huge difference. And one of the biggest things that I see is bringing that 90 to 95% of a person's story into the courtroom that never would go in there. Now, what we're seeing, that ripple effect, is individuals that are going into the courts with the material that we provide. Otherwise, they would go in there with absolutely nothing. And, we're not in this to really, be friends with public defenders and things like that. We want to. I think that together can definitely do a lot more and make a more significant impact. However, our priority is to the individual that is facing the charges. And we're going to do everything that we can to continue to provide for them, to help guide them through the system, them and their families, empowering their families to really show up in a way that's impactful for their loved one, and presenting that material. So, once again, I just really excited to see so many people in this space doing this work.
Thank you, Elias. One thing that's really coming through both from the folks who are doing the participatory defense as well as holistic defense, you said the 95% of the person's story, bringing that in through mitigation, through the packets to make sure that people are seeing not just an offense, but a whole person. So we have a question in the chat from Belinda Doolin at the Dispute Resolution Center. She asks, does restorative justice, deflection, and diversion fit within the framework of holistic defense? And if not, what would be the barriers to that? Belinda, would you make sure everybody else knows what you're talking about when you're talking about restorative justice, deflection, and diversion?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for hosting this. And I really appreciated hearing all the work that's being done across the state. Really, really. In the restorative justice space, we create an off-ramp for people who are facing criminal charges or maybe in the criminal legal system. For many, many years, we saw it on the back end where folks were coming out of incarcerated or during incarcerated. There have been places in the country where survivors of that harm have had a victim offender conference with them. Back in the day, it was called Victim Offender Conference. Now we just look at it as restorative justice as a big tent because there are so many branches of it, if you will, that it's strong enough to do what it needs to do, but also pliable enough to really shape into a model or a system or fit within an existing system to give people, survivors of harm, an opportunity to ask the hard questions, to address their needs from the person who caused the harm. And those who have harm, it helps them, in my experience, come to a place of peace with the harm that they've caused. So it's a very powerful, and in my mind, and this is a Belinda opinion, it's a very holistic moment for individuals. And there are two elements that here in Washtenaw County that we've developed to really be on the front end of the criminal system: deflection and diversion. When a deflection is used, when the prosecutor receives a report and has made a conscious decision to not move forward with any charges, but the parties, particularly the survivor, is interested in understanding more about what has happened from the person who harmed them. So the prosecutor, attorney can make a decision, or someone in that office can make a decision that we will set this case up for deflection, and it gets referred to a restorative justice circle. Diversion is when the prosecutor receives that same kind of report and decides that we're going to move forward with charges, but we'll pump the brakes and pause because the survivor wants to use restorative justice. So to honor the voice of a survivor and to center them, they want to provide that opportunity. So the success of that circle, and success is defined many, many different ways, but the outcome of success for that circle means that not only is the harm doer diverted, everything about that harm is, destroyed, so to say. So there is no public record of a criminal case. But from those who are practicing holistic defense, what does that really mean? Does restorative justice fit within that framework? And if it does not, I want to understand why. What can we do differently?
So I can't speak fully to what the barriers might be or where, like, our office's positionality right now as it pertains to restorative justice. What I know is that I believe there is space for it. And what my understanding is, because I'm not in those meetings or I've not been part of the conversations, because my understanding is that it's more of an attorney issue to be handled, is that there are significant barriers that are being put in place by some of the powers that be that make it difficult for us to feel like maybe it's in the best interest of our client to engage with that.
Thank you for that, Brittany. This is the challenge. It's not a new technique. These techniques are old techniques, but they're not how the system was built to operate. And so anytime we're trying to get folks who know one way of doing things to do something different, there's all the kinds of pushback. Elisheve, it sounds like you have something else to add into this one too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think what I heard and I want to answer is, how do you know that this is working for the people? And what I think is that the people are involved. We know that the people that are usually closest to the harm or being harmed are usually furthest from the resources that it takes to change that. And I think that that's what our role is as people that have resources, that have information, is that it is very important for us to prepare those folks and get those folks ready, right? And to make the decision to want to be different. Because yes, when you go to make changes on both sides, the people that are being harmed also understand collateral consequences sometimes of making change that's going to better, but the hurt or uncomfortableness of having to go through that change when you already being oppressed is a lot. So what I think is just making sure that they're at the table and their voices are lifted up, and you ask them what it is that they need, and then provide and hear that, and then provide that for that space for them to be there. But also think about what it looks like to change a mindset, to start a new narrative. And what does that look like? That looks like what we're doing here and inviting people to conversations.
Thank you for that, Elisheve. As you're saying that, it's really echoing what the work that you and a lot of the other practitioners are doing about educating and demystifying how things work and how they can work differently, because that ignorance is part of what keeps voices off the table. And it's, the withholding of information. I'll put it that way. Try to put blame where it belongs. All right.
Can I add something, Chuck?
Please do, Jasmine.
And Melinda, thank you for offering that question, and even the Elisheve and Brittany for answering before me. I think too, a big piece, because Melinda, something I heard you say of, we want movement, but we also don't want it to be watered down, right? So I think the beauty of this is collaboration building, that coalition building, identifying the right effective partners, and not just stakeholders that want to be thought leaders, but we want to go beyond just ideation, right? Like we need movement in this. So folks that aren't afraid to, like Elisheve said, like bring in the community. And also it's going to be some trial and error. So let's see what hasn't worked, because clearly it's not working. But let's be creative in creating alternative solutions in that. And again, something that DJC, a tool that we use, is power mapping, which allows us to identify who is already doing this work, who are those stakeholders that are our true allies, and who are those stakeholders that we could potentially move. They may be in that gray area, right? And that we can move them to be able to support us more. Because again, we have a lot of folks that agree with us that this work needs to be done and they want to provide their opinion. But what does that look like beyond paper? What does that look like to actually create change in these systems that we know the harm is being done? So how can we mediate that in real time?
Excellent. And Jasmine gave it a shout out in the remarks, but also shout out to the Metro Detroit Restorative Justice Network for building some of that community-based restorative justice infrastructure. So it's not just depending on the participation of the system as well. Speaking of harm done, we've got an observation in the two observations in the chat. One, we've got a book recommendation, Becoming a Restorative Lawyer by Brenda Woe, recommended by Kathy Gorley. And Mari Vischer observes that part of the challenge is that often the cases that the system sees most likely for as candidates for restorative justice are the minor ones, and sometimes there's not a survivor there, right? Like not all crime involves harm to others. Question from Bryson. Curious how the school to prison pipeline that Elisheve was lifting up in her presentation, how that compares across the nation and across the state, and how we can bring holistic defense into the youth justice space. And as Bryson's asking that, I'm also, Cole, if I can put you on the spot, if there are things that you're seeing in the youth justice space.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was just about to ask the same question that Bryson, I think, was asking, because part of me moving in this space as a person with lived experience from the angle of being a parent of a child that was involved in the juvenile justice system, who now is as a man in prison. This all just connects with me. And then just thinking about the work that we do from working with young people that are involved in the juvenile justice system, that are at risk at being involved in the juvenile justice system, and the work that the state has done with looking at, talking about diversion and looking at how we can divert kids from even having to go into a facility at all. I think this is really, for me, all of this is really important, and I'm thinking, like, how do we move this to make sure this is also in the juvenile justice space, so that our young people don't even have to become adults that are having to experience this too. So, and our work at the Delta Project is really around everything that we are talking about, the idea of storytelling and uplifting stories. So I'm excited to be in this space, because I'm also thinking, oh my goodness, how do I get you onto our podcast? What I know now, to even begin to uplift this, so that our folks that are currently in some of our county jails, we have a free podcast in that space, so that they can hear this and say, oh, okay, I can reach out. And so my goal in being in this space is to listen and learn, and then connect with you all to uplift these stories, so that we can share this in spaces that some of our young men don't even get access to.
Yeah, and one thing I really love about what you do at Delta Project, Cole, is when we were hearing about holistic defense, there was a discussion of service provision. And what I see coming from how you approach working with kids in the juvenile justice system, it's similar to how a Brighter Way approaches reentry. It's relationships first. Anybody else want to chime in on this school to prison pipeline piece?
Yeah, I want to make a quick statement on that. Just with the restorative justice and all, I really feel that that's something that definitely needs to start on the community level. I know that I see individuals that are going through the criminal justice system on both sides of the fence. And the tragedy is that a mother on one side of the fence who's, calling for the head of the other person's son on the other side is 1 foot from being on the other side. And that's where that empathy of just, we're all from the same community. And if somebody does something that requires consequence, what does that consequence look like? And if we're all honest with each other, especially as parents, when our kids get caught up in something, we don't want to acknowledge that maybe they were doing something, putting themselves in a position to get caught up in that. We're not being honest about that. And we go into these systems and we want the government to do these things that could be resolved on the community level with the restorative justice. I personally participated in a restorative justice while I was still inside. And I would say that was a very powerful just thing that I experienced. And with the other side, not with the actual person involved with my particular case, but just other individuals that have been impacted on that side. And being a part of that program was very insightful. And with the youngsters, we're ripple effect is supporting 15-year-olds right now, being charged as an adult. and for a DA to just say, well, yeah, we decided to charge him as an adult and that be good enough, that's not acceptable. It should not be acceptable for any of us in this community, because we should have more of a say-so on what does the consequence look like for the individuals in our community. And I think that a big part of that plays into the restorative justice piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias. Brittany, is there anything you'd like to say as we wrap up today?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me here today, and I hope that what I shared was informative, and I'm excited to continue to be in community with y'all.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Similarly, thank you just for having me a part of this conversation. I truly appreciate it. If you are not tapped into DJC, go to our website, detroitjustice.org, to sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram, all the things. We will be having a lot of forward-facing community events such as expungement fairs this summer. So feel free to tap in with us. We're always looking for volunteers, and that is for whether you're an attorney or a non-attorney. So feel free to contact us if you would like to tap into the movement.
Thank you, Jasmine. Elisheve, we are just doing closing comments. Is there anything you'd like to say as we wrap up?
I just like to say that I really appreciate all the folks who showed up here today. And I just want to say that it is so important right now for us to really look at the youth's mental health. And I would just like for folks to please reach out to me. I'd love to do one-to-one with anyone on this call, everyone on this call. Please reach out. Again, my email is elisheve@emergentjustice, and let's do a one-to-one.
Fantastic. All right. And yes, I just want to echo that as well. At Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration, our belief is that there are so many amazing advocates, so many change makers, so many incredible people and organizations across the state who are working to improve public safety and end mass incarceration. And we are stronger when we are able to work together. So I really appreciate your time together in community. I appreciate your ongoing support. And let's stick together as we continue to force these systems to respond to folks, as Belinda said, to respond to the community, not just those who are already in positions of power. Thank you all. You're doing amazing work. I really appreciate you all. Take care.